There is a cost to waiting, is really what it comes down
There
to.
is, yeah.
If the prices go up, even if rates drop a little bit, you still could be paying a higher interest rate or more money well over time.
The reality is there are people who are having some of their best years ever. Nobody's hearing that because so many people are so worried about the headline news.
Every marketplace has had an avenue for someone to make money in some form, but they had to change their view.
Welcome to Signature Buzz, your fast-paced weekly real estate sales meeting.
Welcome to the Signature Buzz, the podcast where we bring clarity, strategy, and straight talk to the world of real estate. I'm your host, Brandon Roberts, corporate broker at Signature Real Estate Group. And today I'm excited to be joined by my friend and co-host, Chris Bishop, general manager at Signature Real Estate Group. We've been through a few market cycles together, and today we're diving deep into what's really happening in this one. Also joining us is one of the sharpest lending professionals in the business, Shelly Panzarella with Prosperity Lending, who's going to break down the financing tools, programs, and strategies that buyers, sellers, and agents need to know right now. So whether you're an agent trying to guide your clients, a buyer looking for leverage, or a seller wondering how to create demand in the slower market, this episode's for you. Let's jump in. First of all, welcome, you guys.
Thank you. I've never been called the sharpest mortgage lender, but I like that.
You're the only one on the call, so
Oh,
you got to be the sharpest.
Okay.
No, you are. You've helped me through a lot of predicaments and done some amazing things, and that's why we're happy that you're our preferred lender here at Signature. And I know you are in a lot of other offices across the valley as well. But let's kick this off with your guys' honest opinion on your honest take on the current market conditions and how they differ from what the headlines are saying. Chris, let's start with you. Maybe some stats or what's going on out there?
Well, sales are still happening. So I think as a real estate professional, the biggest concern I hear from every agent is, oh my God, did the market stop? Are we heading into a tailspin? Is this going to be another recession? And I think that no matter what your perspective will be of the marketplace, the one thing as a salesperson that I want to know, are sales still continuing? And so even in the marketplace right now, we are seeing 2,000 units, a little bit over that, that are closing. That has been similar from months previous. It did tip down about 13% from the month prior. But like 2,000 sales, I know isn't a lot, but you do got to think that that's 4,000 sides of a transaction. Some of us got both of those. But it is encouraging to know that those sales are still participating in the marketplace. What's really exciting, though, is you could have an agent who had a few sales this month, but took 10 listings, because that's the marketplace we're in right now. Inventory is up dramatically. And you know, when I say the word dramatically, I mean dramatically. Like, it's up over 97% from the same time last year. We're seeing about 6,700 units available without offers in our market area. So when you look at the Southern Nevada market and what LVR covers in their MLS, that's a lot. But it's really not a lot, because we have seen way worse. This is about 3.2 months of inventory. And if you were to say a traditional marketplace of almost 3 million people with the incredible nightlife that we have here in Las Vegas and all those other things that we say, about 6 months of inventory is a traditional marketplace where it's a competitive advantage for buyers and sellers. We just haven't seen that for years. But this isn't the first time we've hit 3.5 months of inventory. We did it in 2022. If you guys remember, we were coming out of that horrible COVID crisis. We were on lockdown. People have been stuck in their house with all of those people they live with, and they decided it's time to list and find a new one, right? Well, we saw that inventory go from absolutely nothing during COVID up to about 3.5 months. And here we are again. Thank God we're not locked down and we're not all wearing masks. Maybe you should wear a mask, Brandon, but Shelly certainly should.
It probably would help. But what are you seeing, Shelly, on the mortgage side, the lending side?
So I've seen actually a lot of buyers come to the market just to start the process. I am seeing more serious buyers take advantage of the market right now, which is actually a good thing, right? Because I think buyers that are coming in today, they are truly coming in to negotiate and to truly move forward with the purchase. But people who are coming in today are kind of getting ready. They're asking questions about how long is this pre-approval good for? What happens if it happens to go longer than the 4 months that it's good for? And that gives me indication that people they want to be on the sidelines ready to go when whatever it is that they're waiting for, it happens for them, right? Whether it's interest rates, or they think the sales prices are going to dip, whether whatever from a political standpoint is going to happen, which I think is actually good. This is a really, I mean, we can say it's tough. It is a little bit slower, but it is a good position for us to be in. It definitely slows things down for myself and my team. You know, we're talking about the full fee agent. It's giving us a great opportunity to really get to know our clients and get to understand what it is that they're wanting to do. I actually just had a conversation with an appraiser today, and I'm glad Chris threw out those stats because they're in line with what the appraiser actually mentioned. You guys are on the same page, which is good. He had said about 3 months of inventory. My biggest fear is that we're going to see, if we see more days on market, that puts pressure on declining market situations. And he said he's not seeing that just yet. Now, if, you know, certain segments or certain neighborhoods could potentially fall into that if people start to, you know, slash prices, so to speak, and as the longer they get. But even these 6 to 9 month listings, they're not getting indicated as a declining sale, which is great news for us. So he knows, hey, we're right at that cusp of 3 to 4 months. And just like you mentioned, Brandon, I think there's going to be a tipping point where they're buyers who are on the sideline, the moment that something shifts, whether it's interest rates or whatever, price point becomes a little bit better for them, they're going to jump in. So
Yeah, so it's interesting that the appraiser says that they're not marking it as a declining market yet, but I fear that we're kind of heading that direction. We're seeing a softening, right, where there's some price adjustments. So I'm finding a lot of agents are telling me when they're not getting showings or a home's not selling, I say you need to look at the price. They're going, no, I'm priced right. I'm priced based on the comps. Well, the comps are starting to change. And so the appraisers will see that a lag effect. We also see that when the market starts increasing, it's harder to get the appraisals up to those pieces. That happens. But what would you say is the biggest opportunity right now for both buyers or sellers from the lending side, Shelley?
Well, I feel like because the inventory is there's so much more inventory today, our buyers have more options. And I'm honestly seeing that with pre-approval. So I have a buyer who's probably put in or has been asked for 20 different closing cost worksheets because they want to know what it's going to look like at 20 different properties for them. And that used to be like 1 or 2, per buyer. And then it was like, okay, make a decision, go. Now I do feel like they also feel they've got a little bit, they're in the driver's seat a little bit because they can, discuss sales price, they can discuss incentives as far as closing costs or seller contributions and things like that. So I do think it's really good right now for our buyers, the serious buyer who wants to take advantage of the market, even our investors. Investors right now, it's, where the rates and everything are at, they are taking advantage of this opportunity too.
Okay. And same question to you, Chris. Where do you see the biggest opportunity right now is for both buyers, sellers, and maybe even agents?
It depends. I love that answer. It depends. I'm going to go a little bit different direction and not say the market is softening, but leveling. I think that if the market was a picture on the wall, it would have been crooked one way and then crooked the other way. And now it's level, right? And if you look at the market trends, I love to look at these trend lines where they start, 7-8 years ago, and they go up. The median price trend line really has escalated and then had a small dip right after COVID. But now it's looking like it's leveling off after several months. And I think it's exactly the same, right? But it's not the same in every price point or every product type. And I think that it's important to remember in the Las Vegas MLS, we separate out single family homes versus condos and townhouses. And two very strange things are happening. Number one, across the board, 61% of inventory still is selling within 30 days. And so I would be extremely concerned if I saw that number drop dramatically from like 60% to 40%. That would tell me, oh crap, days on market's going to go nuts. We're going to be looking at 4, 5, and 6 month listings. In some areas where they're overpriced, there's still 4, 5, and 6 months listings, but that's the way it is. But the condo market has done something a little bit different. They have 4.5 months of inventory, which is one of the highest I think that I've seen in at least the last 10 years. And their median price, instead of staying steady like the single family price was pretty even. Theirs actually is dipping for new product coming to market. So in the single family homes, just for example, median price is $480. The median price of new listings is $532. But in the condo market, their median price is $307. which remember a condo like 15 years ago, it was $30,700, not $307,000. Well, the median price of a new condo is down to $299. So it's trending dramatically lower on the new product that's coming to market. And I think that's because of competition, right? You've got all of these buyers, you've got entry-level buyers. What did they say a few years ago? We're going to see more first-time home buyers in the next 5 years than we've ever heard of before. I remember a sales meeting I did with the two of you, and that was the big stat. Well, we're seeing the only place they have left to entry into the market is these condos and townhouses, and that could be a trend for what we're seeing. But still, they're having 600 sales a month that are happening in that condo townhouse area. And still they're happening with 60% in 30 days. So I think that's still a positive stat that I'll hold on to as long as I can.
Well, and I like the terminology change, I guess, because when you're reading headlines and you're hearing things, it's doom and gloom, right? They need to sell subscriptions. I'm not trying to sell subscriptions, so I'll change from softening to leveling or balancing. I think that's more of a clear picture of what's actually happening in our market today. So
as long as the picture doesn't fall off the wall.
You'd be like me and just don't hang pictures.
Yeah.
That's me too. Just put miniature trees in there.
Little trees with no leaves.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so let's get into the financing side, Shelley. You've been a trusted partner in this business for years, and right now financing is where most of the fear lives. Let's clear that up. What are the most creative financing strategies you're seeing work in today's slower market?
It's the rate buy down, the temporary buy down option. For I've actually had conversations with listing agents where we're talking through how do I get this to sell, and the first thing is, let's just do a price reduction, right? Or I'll go into an open house and they said, it's price improved, it went down, $25,000, and it's having the conversation around what it could look like for a buyer on the other side as a maybe helping them buy down the interest rate or doing a temporary buy down versus a $25,000 sales price reduction. I mean, I did the math for one of our agents, and she has a home that was just under $1 million with a client who was going to put 20% down at just a going rate of, say, 7%. They were going to do a $50,000 price reduction and keeping it at that $50,000 with 7% interest rate. The difference in that was $266. Then when we shifted it to say, let's just keep the sales price the same, add that $50,000 towards rate buy down and a 2-1 buy down. So that $50,000, even at that sales price, was equated to like 6.5% in incentive. And so they took advantage of a rate buy down and a 2-1 buy down. Just the rate buy down alone was a difference of $523. Then if they did the 2-1 buy down, that brought it down almost $1,000 in payment for the first year's interest rate. And so I think that mindset has to, you got to start thinking like that. We're from a integrity standpoint in the community too. Like if they sell and that price point stays at that higher price point, that helps the community stay. You're not seeing the huge price reductions. And then of course it's going to help with pocketbooks, right? Because commissions will be based on the higher sales price versus the $50,000 low. So that's been something that I've seen that's been really key. Even in structuring some of my transactions for our first-time home buyers, as an example, maybe they're not using down payment assistance, but they're trying to get in at a lower payment today because of inventory and where it's at. We're talking about negotiating to get sellers to help contribute even 1 or 2% to help buy down that interest rate just to get them in to make it more affordable for them.
Dan, I think that's a good point on rather than just always reduce the price, because that's typically what agents been comfortable doing. Right now, we see a lot of new construction being the kind of the go-to product, and a lot of that is because of the incentives being offered. And so this would allow the resale to basically compete in that same arena.
Well, so we're actually working on something very similar to what the builder model looks like. So what you see with your D.R. Hortons and your KBs, where the builder and the lender are owned the same, you see a lot of what they call forward interest rate locks. So the locks that are happen off of the settlement statement. So, most of our loans are capped with, 4%, a 3%, or 6% seller contribution. in a case where a builder's offering 1.99%, I think what Lennar was throwing that, advertising that, what they've ultimately done is bought the rate down so low, so say to 4.99% off. They call it a forward lock. They buy that kind of off of the settlement statement. And then they offer the 3-2-1 buy down. So that first interest rate is 1.99. And then they pay closing costs. So that stays within the seller contribution. We're working to try to find a way for us to offer that to our listing agents as well. And of course, you guys will be the first ones that get this information, where it's to secure kind of a forward lock with our sellers so that they can offer those same below market interest rates and then do the additional closing cost in addition to that. So I think that will flip the script as far as some of these. I don't know that that changes if you're a little bit overpriced on comps, but I do think it'll change to market for those 1.99% interest rates or, the 4.99% interest rates.
So it sounds like agents and lenders could really work more closely.
Different than just sitting at an open house together.
Yeah, probably a lot more effective. But now, also sitting in an open house, when you have the incentives and stuff that you can offer, it makes those conversations different. But Chris, outside of like holding open houses and a buyer walks in, I mean, how do you get this information? Your seller's going to have incentives, stuff like that. How would you say to get that marketed out there?
Yeah, this is where the skill that applies in our job that they pay us the big bucks for really comes in. And I think that's, if you don't know, finding the broker or the mentor that can help you through it is really important, because, lending is an interesting setup when things change based on the marketplace, right? We just saw a market we came out of where commissions were going to be an issue. And we figured out that practice and we moved forward and it worked. So the relationship between you and your lender, just like the relationship I have with Shelly on every deal that I do with her, is a questionnaire of things. Hey, this is what the client's wanting to do. Is this possible? Is this possible? Is this possible? And it's important for me as an agent and any agent to stay educated and to listen and to be intertwined in the things that are happening in the market. And what happens in one marketplace will cycle back forward again in a new way. When I hear 3-2-1 buy downs, I'm a little trepidatious on some parts, because I remember when ARMs were adjustable and that's how we could stomach the equity increase that we would get. Yeah, it's adjustable in 5 years. Who cares what happens in 5 years? I'll have made all this equity. And then we saw the equity part not happen, and then the ARMs adjusted. It slapped us right in the face, right? And so I think what's ironic about now is that we're trying to find a way that we should to purchase the property because I need to live in this house. I need a place to live, but I can't really afford it at that rate and be comfortable. And the worst thing a buyer can do is take that extra $1,000 and spend it on something else. What they should be doing is putting that money away that they're saving so that they can warm up to the ability to make that payment in case the interest rates stay where they are. Now, the best part about what Shelly put out was that in 3 years, hopefully, if everything is right in the world, interest rates will become more agreeable. And now I can refinance into a payment I feel good about, and I won't, be in a house that I can't afford. And so that's really what this is all about, is affordability with need. I've got to get into a house, but yet that price is a lot. How do I make that work? And I think there's so many great ways to make that happen, because if you communicate with your lender, they're going to share with you all of these different programs that do different things. And it's just about, does that work for me and my family?
So Shelly, he tied these together with the adjustable rate. What's the difference between an adjustable rate and a 3-2-1 buy down?
Yeah, so they're not the same. An adjustable rate is totally different. Back in the days, it was a 3 or a 5 or a 7 1 ARM. It's still that same way today. That's a fixed period of time and then becomes an adjustable rate mortgage. A temporary buy down is truly where you have a note rate. So let's just say today it's 7% and you do a 2-1 buy down. Your first year's interest rate starts at 2% below that 7, and then your second year is 1% below that 7, and then your third and subsequent year is at 7%. It's truly a 30-year fixed mortgage. What happens is the seller pays the difference between that payment. So the 5% payment, the seller gives you that contribution to pay that gap. Then for the second year, the seller pays that contribution to cover the 6 to 7 gap, and then it's gone. One of the great features on a temporary buy down is that those gaps that I was talking about, that payment difference between 7 or 5 to 7, and then the payment difference between 6 to 7, that gets secured into an escrow account. Let's say rates dip end of the year. that puts you in a position that you can refinance into even a lower interest rate than your first year or maybe where it's at the second year. That money is set aside in your escrow account if you still have it available, that you can utilize that either to do the refinance or you can use it to do a principal reduction or you just get it back as cash. So it's a great incentive to utilize for temporary buy downs. But I'm glad that Chris brought that up because that truly is, it's not an adjustable rate mortgage. It feels like it to some extent just because it does adjust, but it is a 30-year mortgage. When we qualify a client, it's qualified based off of that 7% interest rate. The actual note rate on an adjustable rate mortgage will qualify them based off of the fixed period rate.
So it's really designed to get the payment down. You know what your interest is. They're just paying that interest, and then it builds back into it. And so, Chris, and I'm glad we cleared that up because I know anyone that was down, early on in the recession there, where they got caught with that. They might be a little leery of the 3-2-1 buy down. But Chris, if you're going to market this, right, you've got concessions your seller's going to pay. Can you put it across the multiple listing service? And if yes, how?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. There's a problem right now with the word concession or contribution and the way that it's marketed. First off, I, as a real estate agent, never market lending terms. I don't care what the reason is personally. It's just a liability factor I don't need, but I'd rather have them be with a professional that can explain it in a manner that makes complete sense versus a real estate agent just putting a blurb that says, hey, they're going to give you this interest rate, because agents put in things all the time that aren't exactly what the lender said. So I think you should get very specific. Incredible program for this home. If you call Prosperity Lending, here's their number, right? I would much rather have that than me marketing a rate buy down or anything else, because what if the market changes and I'm not selling in that first 30 days, right? So I'm very leery about putting those things in, but I think that's what we created agent-to-agent remarks for. Now, I do know that the MLS system itself flags concessions because it thinks it's compensation being offered by the agent for the co-op. We just had that instance here, and it wasn't that at all, but the MLS still flagged it. And so I would say be very, very careful of those things that are in it. I do want to point out one factor of what Shelley said. These incentive programs are there. Like I'm not crapping on them. That's not my point. It's like getting used to hot water, right? If I jump into a boiling pot, I'll jump right out. But if I jump in and it's warm water and I can understand it, that's what it feels like to me. The thing that she said is we qualify them based on 7%. And this is a way for them to get into the home, make the down payment work, deal with the closing costs, all the furniture you got to buy to make the place happen, putting in the backyard you couldn't afford. I mean, this is a way to give you the finish line you want while warming up to the fact of where you're going to be until something changes like the weather. And I think that that's the explanation point that a lot of agents fail to explain to a client. It's a temporary process, right? It's not for forever because, who do you know that really has a house for 30 years? Do you guys know anybody? My grandparents lived in a house for 50 years. Worst real estate clients ever. But do you know a lot of people that do that?
I was close, 20. I was in my
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a long time. So most people are going to move in 5 to 7 years anyway, or convert it into an investment property. And that should be my goal. If I'm the realtor helping them gain wealth, is to acquire assets, right? And so I think that this fallacy in our brain where it has to stay for forever is probably caused by us as real estate agents, not really participating with our clients long-term when they buy an asset. I do have a client right now. He bought a new home for me 5 years ago. His interest rate was 1.8%. I don't even understand how it got to that point. He says, I'll be buried in this house before I get rid of it, but it won't be my last home.
That's good.
Hang on to it, right, at that rate. But use it as an investment or whatever. But good point, Chris, on advertising interest rates and lending programs, stuff like that. That's why we have professionals like Shelley that do that. I mean, what kind of tools or what kind of things could you help an agent out with to help them market the property with these incentives?
So we have, our list reports. We actually have a new home power, which is something that we're utilizing inside of open houses. We do, we've got an in-house marketing director that'll also put together flyers and things like that you can push out for social media distribution or any of your emails. I mean, direct mail or anything. We're doing so many different things right now. I think that's the one thing I would say for agents who are listening to this, because It's good that a lot of our agents are getting listings. They have to become really systematized systematized, is that the right word? In their process, SOPs or whatever you want to call them, because they're getting so many, but they're not following procedure on marketing, right? And so certain aspects of their marketing or their process of their flow of getting them onboarded, they're missing the marketing aspect, and then days go by and they haven't marketed the home correctly, And so, from a lender standpoint, we can provide services to help you as far as any type of marketing collateral, and then to your point, as far as the communication aspect of it. I don't really it's not that it's given us more time to really create and help build a strategy for our clients today. And that really does play into both myself and my realtor partner helping to make that happen in even getting an offer accepted and being on the same page with the seller, accepting the strategy that we're trying to put together for them.
I think to Shelley's point, one of the big miss parts for an agent is they go and take a listing and they don't inquire at all about the program that's currently on the property.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't ask the seller what type of mortgage, what's the payoff? That's all they want to know, right? So I can factor a net sheet. What's your current product? Is it assumable? Would you be willing to carry on this property if it opened up a wider pool of buyers that would be willing to pay your price? The current interest rates you have, what is it? We've found several instances, and I've worked alongside with Shelley on these deals where I said, hey, Shelley, I've got a buyer that found a property. They currently have a 3% rate that's assumable on a VA loan that's on the property right now for $300,000. We only have to make up a difference of $100,000. What can we do? I mean, it's a much better situation to go into when you have a lending partner you can confide in and say, hey, I know that you won't be doing this total loan, but for the sake of this client, what can we do? She's answered every one of those calls. She's helped me strategize every one of those ways to do it. That's what you look for in a lender, someone that's not about their paycheck, but about the client satisfaction, because every deal I've done with Shelley has always been about that. They always come back and say, wow, it was great working with Shelley. Wow, Shelley sent me a cutting board. Wow, Shelley said what a nice guy you were. I can't believe it. That's the type of thing you look for. But it really is that strategy of, if I'm going to take a listing and the only interest I have is my open house sign and my sign in the front yard, and I don't really market the total picture of it, that's where I'm failing to capture all the buyers that are possible.
Yeah, good point. And it's about becoming the trusted advisor and working with a great team and creating a great experience all the way through and looking at all the options. So Shelley, talk to us about assumable mortgages. I mean, are they a realistic option or are they just a headline grabber?
Well, I think it depends on the servicer. I have heard that some servicers, because it's been, some servicers have perfected the way that they have taken it on and getting the buyers through. There are some that, just like back in the days, like normal, when all the modifications and things, it's like I fax it in and it's still not there. So I would say if you're considering it, I mean, to Chris's point, like you really need to ask those questions of your clients when you're going through that from your sellers to see if it's something that they have even access to, because your assumables are done only through a VA, and I guess conventional would be on an exception basis, but VA and FHA loans. So if your sellers are FHA or VA, 100%, without even asking, they have access to do an assumable loan. The process as far as the assumption is going to be just like regular qualifying. However, you go directly to your seller or you go to your seller servicer. So it's important to have the listing agent, whether they're on the phone with the servicer or the seller contacts the servicer, to find out what it looks like, because it's different for everybody. Time frame, process, all of that stuff. But first step would be to even asking the question if it's available, and then if so, the next step would be to have them or contact together the servicer to find out what it is. Again, it goes back to education too, right? Understanding the whole process.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times agents, if they're unsure, they don't know how to do something, they kind of shy away from it. Like I was just in Elko talking with a bunch of our agents up there, and they're doing assumalables.
Yeah,
like,
they're being done.
Yeah, it's and they're saying it's not hard, right? But I think we make it a little harder with the unknown, so to speak. But I'd always heard that they weren't really the servicers weren't really incentivized to do them because they'd rather you pay a higher interest rate. Is that the case?
Well, I think I don't know that it's that they're incentivized. I think it's more that they have staffing to do it, because they're not they're not in a position to they have to qualify these clients. And most of your servicing side is not your front end retail side, like us doing the originations. And so they're slower, a little bit more antiquated. And then the other thing that I think some people think or don't realize is, so a seller has a $300,000 VA assumable loan, but they want to sell at market value of $400,000. That gap financing, your client has to come in with the difference, or we have to provide some form of financing for that in between, which we can do. We can do some home equity lines of credit. I just don't think that is, some people are thinking about that when they hear assumable loans. So yes, they can get qualified for the assumable loan, but then they can't qualify to get the gap financing on it. And so you can't do the deal, as far as that's concerned. So a lot of different nuances with it, but I am seeing it get done. Again, it's based on servicer.
Okay. And so you would still, like if there was a gap financing, you would still take part in that?
Yeah. It's
Like they can come
ultimately
to
just it's just a home equity line of credit. Or
Okay.
50.
And those home equity lines are usually, like when we're talking interest rate, they're a high interest rate, but
Yeah.
it's only for this small portion, which is the same result that you're talking in the 3-2-1 buy down, where we're augmenting a portion for a period of time. Like it's numbers on one side or the other, but I kind of always liked the idea of I have this large down payment I'm putting down, I'm going to do it anyway. And then there's this small segment. The likelihood of me paying off a higher interest loan because I don't want to make that payment anymore is likely. Like people shoot to pay off their credit cards because they're 27% low. They shouldn't use them at all, right? But they shoot to do that for that purpose. So I always kind of thought of it that way in my head that, get rid of that. And then I'm back down to this loan I can accept.
Yeah.
So are there buyer assistance programs out there that are currently available?
Chris Bishop, Realtor.
Are you offering financing? Because I'm looking,
No,
he's
I'm
looking for
offering
it.
assistance.
Oh, I gotcha.
Oh, buyer assistance. I got it. Yeah, financing though.
We still have our down payment assistant programs between, for Home is Possible, Home at Last. We now have expanded that. There are other down payment assistance programs because Home is Possible and Home at Last, they have a box, right? And it's either income or credit score driven or location driven or all of it. We do have a few outside of the box down payment assistance programs that will allow for higher income qualifying, higher debt to income ratio qualifying, and then lower credit scores. So I am seeing more of those come to us as far as pre-approvals are concerned. And so it is out there. We actually are, we've had conversations as well about one entity that will do a lease to buy option. So that is something that we're doing more homework on, but it's already out there right now that we'll be able to kind of bring to the table to share with our agents.
Okay. And can you break down like real math of buying a home now versus waiting 6 months or a year?
Cost of waiting?
Yeah. I know you do this. Well, it doesn't have to be real. You do it. I'm sure you do this quite often, and you probably have a scenario in the top of your head. I won't hold you to the figures, or you can pass, and we can put it in the comments later.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody, like today, the old statement, or I guess we were saying this, almost 5 years ago, marry the house, date the rate. Mm-hmm. And with where we are today, you're looking at more inventory. We already, Chris threw out the stats and everything like that. And so you have more options if you find the home that you want to marry as interest rates go down, which I do believe that they are going to come down. Will they come to 3%? I don't think so. I think we're going to get into a nice zone of, say, 6, even 5.5%. And so considering that, what is average yearly increase appreciation, like 3 to 4%?
Yeah, that's average.
Yeah. So if you were to take that, over what is 3 to 4% on 100,000? That's like $3,000, $4,000. And so
Easy
if you're
math.
going to see easy math, super easy. I don't know. You could find a house here for $100,000, But if you consider that and then you wait, I think that's the other part, right? You're not only just, it's not even just the appreciation aspect of it, but you've got more people coming to the market based on the same reasons other people are holding back to jump into the market. So then you're going to even see probably the 2020, 2021 increase that we saw, maybe not to the 20% impact we had, but there's the impact of the cost of waiting where you could get in today, even if you're just going to get the 3 to 4% increase, you can get into the home today, then take advantage of a refinance down the road, not have to pay any of the multiple offer situation, not have to jump into that, and save yourself the gap of that, say $10,000 to $15,000 even in a year difference, which that makes up, if interest rates stay the same and you still see that increase, that's still about $50 to $60 on a payment.
Yeah. So there is a cost to waiting is really what it comes down
There
to.
is, yeah.
If the prices go up, even if rates drop a little bit, you still could be paying a higher interest rate or more money well over time.
More money.
Yeah.
Well, just the possibility of the interest deduction or depreciation aspect on the asset itself, tax-wise, I mean, that's the question for your tax professional, but just that part of it could have saved you that entire difference on that monthly payment.
So true.
If you look at it from, the fact that I'm paying taxes at the end of the year and getting a return, and that interest rate is such a big piece of that we've defended for so many years.
That's actually something. So back when we were doing the 2 to 3% interest rates, I would, sell the fact that, hey, this is going to be this could be a tax advantage for you because of the interest rates. I actually would have clients call me back and say, my CPA said that because the interest rate is so low, I don't have enough to write off because it's only 2% or 2.5%. And so now they have some form of a tax advantage just because it's a 6 or 7% interest rate. So it's crazy to think that could be an opportunity, but that is another window of opportunity to think about.
So I'm not sure about this, but I think if they write a check to Signature Real Estate Group, it could be tax deductible. They can just write us a check if they need more deductible. But
I want to ask a question that Shelley brought up, and I think this is an interesting thing. Like Brandon and I just got done with the legislative session, and one of the bills that was in there was I think it was $10 million allocated to buy down interest on a primary home loan. Like it's a new program rolled out by the state, hasn't gone anywhere yet. They haven't figured out the pieces for it. And there's all these other programs that have put out there that, really you Shelley, are the front lines of learning about it because we hear about it and we go to you and say, what? Can we get this money? Is this true? It kind of seems like gift cards to me. Like, people buy these gift cards and they don't use them and the money just goes away. Right. And I think that when it comes back to the skill conversation of having a great lender and a good agent that knows what they're talking about, is you don't just hear about these programs very easily. I mean, like one that's really good gets snapped up right away and then no one gets to take advantage of it. And so how do you stay? This is the question I have. How do you stay engaged in all of these programs and the rollouts? And is there like a newsletter you get? I mean, how do you find them all?
I just come to you, Chris. I'm like, hey, what's new in the real estate world? I think I try to be at the forefront of news and such. And, I can't say that I get it all right all the time and as quick as possible. But for us, it's really important that we have every option and opportunity to help our clients, whether you're a first-time home buyer or this is your, investment property, or now we're even into reverse mortgages. And so it's really staying attuned to the market, like different articles. I'm on Housing Wire, Inman News, Mortgage Daily. So those things come through. And then truly, I mean, there's always the circuit that comes out from our realtor side that tells us also what might be popping up for us. And then, sometimes I'll hear on the street, like, oh, this grant, just like their big $50,000 credit union grant that lasted 10 minutes. I heard about it like a day before I called the agent, in one day, and I called the loan officer at the credit union, got all the information, was able to educate my realtors. I was not able to actually do the loan, but I wanted to be an advocate for my agents to help their buyers. And honestly, I handed a couple over. Unfortunately, the money went like that. I mean, it literally went in not 10 minutes, but a week. It was gone because of the amount of funding that was out there and how many people were waiting for this funding that could actually qualify for it. So I usually just try to stay abreast of things that are, top of mind and newsworthy.
See, and that's a good point. When you're doing a lot of transactions, you're full time in this industry. I mean, you see more, you hear more, and you're able to deliver more for sure. Yeah. Chris, Speaking of that, you coach agents, you coach our agents, you coach agents all over the place. How are you coaching agents to talk to sellers without triggering fear or unrealistic expectations?
Yeah, clear questions, I think, is an important part of it. I think the biggest problem is you got to stop telling people and you got to start asking people what they want. And I think a lot of times when we're doing these presentations to sellers, we're so fixated on selling them on us that we forget we got to sell the property to somebody else, right? And so it's about having those conversations. And I do a lot of explanation when I'm with a seller and we're talking about the pricing of their house, because it's really a matter of decisions that they've got to make. The house can stay here for another 9 months and not sell because we're so far overpriced, no one's looking at your property. Or we have these three other options. We can do this, we can lower the price, we can change its condition. I mean, it's always a choice. And I think a lot of times we're so fearful of, oh my God, they're going to be mad at me. Well, be mad at me. I mean, like my job, the reason why they're paying me the money that they're paying me is to provide them with options and having real conversations. And I think that we take things way too personal. It's not our house and it's not our money. It's our client's house and it's their money and it's their dreams and goals and wants and needs. And I'm just there to give them a roadmap. And I think that circles back to the point that if I go into a presentation on a price reduction and I don't have some options for a client, just like Shelly brought up the 3-2-1 buy down, that's an option I could go into and explain to a seller, well, we could try this. And this could be a path to find you the right buyer. Or we could try this, and this could be another path. And I think having those options is important, but it takes a lot of questions from the agent. It takes the team behind you of having professionals that will support you in it. I remember just about 2 weeks ago, and I feel bad about this still. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I had an agent call me up and say, oh my God, my client got told about this program and they'll pay for solar on the house and everything else. And I said, that sounds like a scam. And I called Shelly and she answered. And I said, hey, have you ever heard of this? And she goes, yeah, I've heard of that. And she goes, but I don't have all the research with me right now. I'll call you tomorrow with the info. And she did. She called me back. She goes, yeah, here's a new program where they'll actually put solar on the house and they'll pay for it as part of the loan. I was able to take that, provide it to the agent before he did his presentation because it's something the client heard that they wanted to verify. Like, that's the whole point. It's just finding information, providing it so they can make decisions. Thank you for answering, by the way.
Well, I'm going to talk to her about that. You shouldn't work 24/7. You send Chris to voicemail. Hey, so Chris, where are agents missing opportunities right now that maybe top producers are seizing? Because and maybe even some of the top producers, what I'm finding is some agents are really making some money or working through this market, and others are starting to become a little bit more paralyzed or kind of in shock. I mean,
Yeah.
Where are the opportunities out there?
Well, first off, move out of fear. Like, you cannot succeed in any marketplace if you're the scaredest person in the room. And it just like horses, your clients will sense it off of you. So stop being so afraid of everything. When I got my license to sell real estate, it didn't matter in the marketplace in which I was selling. It mattered how innovative I could create a path forward, right? And what I love about this marketplace, and this is what I take from it, that there are now these small little niches in the marketplace that I can become a professional in and create a skill or an advanced knowledge that my competitor may not have. Just like when we were talking about assumptions, I look at that like I had to learn how to be really good at short sales because almost 40% of everything that sold was a short sell. And when 40% of everything's a short sell, you're going to learn about short sales, right? Well, now we have this small little piece of the marketplace where if I was able to get in and understand assumable loans, get in and meet the servicers, work with a lender like Shelly who can actually work in those situations and answer what happens in the gap, right? If I could jump in and learn more about that and become better at it, I could create a niche that allows my buyers to get homes that other buyers can't easily get because their agent doesn't know what they're doing in it. And I think that that's the whole point. If you're able to jump in and learn this information and to do your research, not just chat GPT, but also verify what it tells you and go to the next layer and the next layer after that, you could actually make an extreme amount of money because you're providing that skill set to your clients.
Okay. And yeah, it's true. And Shelly, you mentor a lot of agents as well, but also your loan officers on your team. I mean, some of them are probably struggling or fearful or different things like that. What are you telling them?
Right now, this is the opportunity for us to refine our work and also to work to be consistent. I mean, that's the one thing I'm like, what is it you like doing? Let's not focus on results. Let's just focus on the activities and just do that and be consistent at doing it. Don't drop off or don't jump off the wagon, whatever you say, and you stay consistent on the activities that you're needing to do. The outcome, the results are going to come. That's the hardest part, though, for all of us. And I'm guilty of it for myself, right? Is that, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that, which we might have a little bit more time to do that. But imagine if you can really go all in into one thing, one or two things that you stay focused on. And then 2 to 3 months down the road, that just becomes a habit. You could add on to that, but today just start staying consistent and focusing on one or two things. And I agree, this scarcity mindset, the reality is there are people who are having some of their best years ever. And nobody's hearing that because so many people are so worried about the headline news. And so if we just change that in our head, like, okay, I'm going to have my best year ever. Well, what does that have to look like? Well, it has to look like this for me. And that's ultimately what I tell everybody. I know it might be Pollyanna sunshine, but if you're just sticking to the basics and staying consistent on it, you are going to get the results and outcomes you want.
I want to bring up something she said because it's like the transition turn in a newscaster's, like they're telling you bad news and then they transition and turn. It like focuses you off of what they just said. It's so important because in every marketplace we've ever seen, like since I've been in the business 20 years now, this year I'll celebrate it. Every marketplace has had an avenue for someone to make money in some form, but they had to change their view. They had to change the way they looked at things, and they had to change the perspective in which they're thinking. Like I went to a class, and one of the people in the class said, "Well, did you know you could buy homes in your 401k and you can actually get loans for them?" I'm like, "What?" I know clients that have huge 401ks and they're scared what's going to happen in the marketplace. And now we just answered that problem, right? And when interest rates started to escalate, did you know you can assume loans? Well, I'd heard of assume loans for a while. Owner carrier. Like we didn't talk about that for 10 years with most people. But yet, if you go into the MLS right now, owner carry available properties has gone from like 80 to 200 and some odd properties that are saying, yeah, we'll look at it. Those are all about changing a perspective. And I think that's really what it takes is to go where everyone's not, right?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, don't stick your head in the sand. I think shift. Don't stick your head in the sand. I mean, get out there and talk to people and stuff like that. And I think we've really got to focus on stopping chasing, trying to convince people to buy or sell, and start really connecting with the people that you know and building those relationships, because that's long term what's going to happen and what's going to change your business in the future. And I believe that the agents that make it through this, right? If it gets tougher or whatever, make it through and adapt, will be stronger agents in the future. And many of our agents haven't been able to go through a turn or a cycle like this. And so they're going to learn a lot through this process. But I'm seeing some very experienced agents getting a little bit nervous. And a lot of it is because their phone stopped ringing, which just means you have to pick up the phone and start reaching out to people and just checking on them, see how they're doing. So if you were personally buying or selling right now, what move would you make and why?
So I am currently buying. I'm buying
You need an agent?
my student housing home. I will tell you that it was, when we first took it down a year ago, it was something like, okay, I'll just put the deposit down. And now where we're at today, I mean, I'll be honest, as a buyer consumer, I was considering canceling because of all stock portfolio dropped, right? And interest rates aren't changing. And in the industry, things might be slowing down and all that good stuff. But I am seeing inside of that market, and it's in San Diego, inside of that market, that this home, it's a new home. The appreciation in that year that's already got 200,000. I know I have to sell the house or whatever the case is, but I'm looking at it from an economic standpoint, one, for appreciation, and then two, my daughter's going to live in this house as her student housing, and we're going to be able to have people in there or other students in there and take advantage of an investment property basically for us. And so we're going to we're going to cash flow, or maybe even, and I'm okay even if we're just net positive zero on that for cash flow, but appreciation aspect of it. And I can secure student housing for my daughter where she's not, we pretty much developed that. And, but I'll tell you, leading into it, is this the right time? And I went through the same, I'm sure, questions that all of our consumers have. And I am an advocate of the industry. I am in the industry, and so I believe firmly in the industry. And so we're closing July 17th.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Chris, you just bought a house.
I did. And, I got to be honest, when I was going through it, same thing that Shelley was talking about. Funny enough, my sister-in-law, same city, San Diego, my niece, 2 years ago, we said, why don't you buy a house there? Because it makes sense. You need to disperse some assets anyway. And she's like, oh, no, she's living on campus. It's part of the experience. Well, guess what? 2 years later, she's like, man, I should have bought that house. Now we're looking. Same idea. And the values have escalated dramatically. Rates have gone up dramatically, not dramatically, but they've gone up since then. And she's in that same thing. But I went through, just closing on my house about 2 months ago now. And I'm thinking, oh, crap, am I making a wrong decision here? And then I was reminded, I got to live somewhere. Mm-hmm. And what's the value that it brings to my family to have this home and this place and this setup? Will it make my life better? And I kept answering the question, yes. Even though I have to deal with it, even though I got to put all my crap in a moving van and I got to move in the starting the hot months. It'll make my life and my family. Already I'm sleeping better at night. Like it's that much of a change. And I think that that's the whole point for the consumer. If you can change your perspective and it makes your life better, why wouldn't you? And for Shelley's point, here in Las Vegas with UNLV, that was my starting of my business, was people that lived in those crappy dorms that they were dealing with. Now they're all fixed up and different, or they were. But they were spending $8,000-9,000 a semester, and they could have gone out and paid the entire mortgage on that house for that amount of money. It's the way it makes a lot of sense for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I regret not buying student housing when Tyson went to college.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about it, and so I think that's a tremendous opportunity. But that says a lot. I mean, you guys are in the industry and you're still buying and selling, and I think that should put a lot of people at ease as well.
Another great perspective is now I'm at the point where I have parents, and I don't want to say elderly parents because they're not elderly parents.
They're just
so
older.
it's the new 50. But they're at the point where they're looking to be closer, and they're looking to downsize and have something a little bit more economical. And so now, like when you go through this that long, you now see this full transition from, finding that college dorm to put your teenager in, and now finding that perfect property down the way from where you live to put your parents in. You start assembling your family members, and you got a whole investment portfolio.
Yeah. You know what I think is actually that you hit the point is what it really is for all of us is that if there is a need for us to buy or sell, we're going to do it, right? Whether it's economical, or like in these cases for myself, economical, we're going to pay rent, or we're going to pay landlord, we're going to pay our mortgage. And maybe the timing around the clients that we're working with today can't see that just yet, and that's why there's this delay. But when that pressure comes, even our below, like our 2 and our 3% interest rate clients, they will have to sell. There's several. I mean, I think it's like 80% right now. Sentiment is that those clients with the 2 to 3% interest rate are just living in their home because they don't want to get rid of that interest rate, but they hate the house that they live in, or they need to move because of other reasons. And I think that's just something for all of us to, if we can uncover that for each of our clients, I think that opens up the opportunity, and you can discover a difference in just, oh, I'm just buying or selling a house to my clients. Like true motivation for you and for myself was that I didn't want to have to pay rent for my daughter, right? I wanted to actually invest in the industry and gain equity. And that was my number one motivation. And we need to find that for our customers.
Good deal. Any final thoughts, Chris?
I know I brought up the fear factor, but if I draw a trend line from 2000 to 2025, people made money. There were a lot of ups and downs and the arrows that happened in between them. And I mean dramatic ups and downs. But if you take that trend line and go from here to there, it was a steady course of appreciation. It was just all the crap that happened in the middle. And so for those people, it's a funny thing we were saying in 2020 was if you had stayed in the house the entire time, you didn't experience recession and crisis. It's where it was. But most people don't do that, except for the one that you guys could think of in my grandparents. But I think that, the way I look at it now is the assets I'm buying now are for the benefit of my family and my retirement, because in 25 or 30 years from now, those assets will have appreciated as long as I don't do anything dramatic or react dramatically. They should have a value, and knock on wood that everything goes well with that. But that's what we saw in the past. And so that would just be my thoughts. Look for the value and the ingenuity within the business, and look for ways for your clients to be in that position 30 years from now.
Good deal. And how about you, Shelley? Final thoughts?
For me, from an agent perspective, I would just say it is really changing your mindset, living in a place of abundance versus scarcity, and then also being able to relay that to your clients. I think, I commend you, Brandon, for rolling out this full fee agent. It shifted the way that I think of my own business personally and how I quote interest rates. And it's not even quoting interest rates, it's how I have conversations with my clients and my family and my friends now. Everything is leading me to that tactical empathy. But I think for that, it's to really take the time, spend the time to get to know your clients. But then from a tactical standpoint, be very consistent in the thing that you're doing and stay positive focused in what it is that you're doing.
Very good. Shelly, Chris, thank you. This episode flew through. That was packed with real talk, tactical ideas, and a clear path forward. Thank you both for sharing what you're seeing and what's working right now. And to our listeners, our agents out there, this market is not about waiting. It's not about work. It's about working smarter. If you took anything away, something helpful today, share this episode with a colleague, your team, or a client who needs clarity and confidence. Until next time, I'm Brandon Roberts alongside Chris Bishop and Shelly Panzarella, and this has been the Signature Buzz. Stay sharp, stay focused, stay empathetic, and stay in action. And remember, we're always affirming your success.